So I think the initiative for critical and emerging technology between the US and India, the inaugural meeting was in February of this year. I see this as, more of sort of a grander defense trade and technology initiative. You still have the US-India DTTI initiative going forward, but that's more focused, I think, right now, sort of proof of concept of what the US and India can do together in terms of co-development and co-production. I see the iCET as much more ambitious. As you said, it is driven by the two NSAs. So it has sort of the political backing at the highest levels to once and for all really figure out the issues between the US and India on technology, on defense, co-development and co-production. And I think it also is driven a little bit by the Russia-Ukraine war, because as India is looking to reduce its dependence on Russia, the US wants to, provide India options and see what's really out there, of what is the potential in the relationship. And that's where you have, a discussion on future technologies, you have a discussion on jet engines, you have a really kind of a wide variety of capabilities that two countries are looking at together. And I do think, obviously this initiative is also going to face similar challenges to what we've seen with DTTI. So, on the US side, of course, things such as the export control restrictions, the issues with transfer of technology, the issues with enticing, American private defense firms to actually partner this technology will have to be figured out. On the Indian side, making actually a business case for being able to buy some of these technologies that are developed, figuring out, the defense procedures and the regulatory policies that will actually make sure that, these sales or purchases or this production happens will also have to be figured out. But I do see this as both sides really trying to look at an ambitious agenda and hoping to work together in the future.
Some of the issues you have already raised with DTI, it's been almost more than a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
The progress, both sides have issues. I mean, apart from the bureaucratic red tape, more on one side. What is it that you see that is holding the India and US back on that front?
Mm-hmm. I think my sense of that initiative is that when it started, there was really a top-down focus on it. Secretary Carter directly would look at sort of the day-to-day workings of that and ask for updates. And there was a lot of enthusiasm both on the US and India side to actually align their procedures such that the two countries could work together. And I do think that in some ways that initiative or the other things that it sort of sprung up did help the relationship. I mean, the fact that India got the major defense partner status from the US, the SDA-1 authorization, all of that has actually helped the relationship. It has helped the US and India actually talk about, technology and co-development. But perhaps what happened there was just a misalignment in terms of the expectations that both sides had from the initiative. My understanding is that the US side was much more focused on the trade side of the defense trade and technology initiative, and on the Indian side, the focus was much more on technology. And so, both sides had put forward a lot of initiatives, put forward a lot of projects that they could work on together, but they just could not figure it out because from the beginning, their expectations or alignments of what that initiative was supposed to be didn't match. And so I think, hopefully the new project that both sides have now signed on developing the UAVs is actually going to, go forward and hopefully will be, helping the US and India actually develop habits of cooperation and developing things together. So let's see how that goes.
That realignment into the India is extremely clear, when you're talking about co-production or co-research and development, whatever it is, co-manufacturing, in alignment with Atmanirbhar. Now, has the world and has the US been able to understand that is what it's going to be like?
Mm-hmm. I think that there is an understanding of the Indian position on why, the Make in India program or the self-reliance or the Atmanirbhar program has come about. And at least the way I see it, it is driven by, multiple factors. It is driven by the pandemic. It is driven by the state of the India-China relationship. And those two combined in some ways India realizing that it actually has to think about where, has to think about supply chains, has to think about, not relying on anyone else for its sort of national security consideration. So I think there is, a sense of that. There is an understanding of that in the U.S. Of course, there have been, concerns about whether this would actually close out opportunities for India to develop partnerships with other countries in the West, like the US or France and Israel. But I think the way that we're talking about that now, I think there is actually space to do both. There is space for India to keep the kind of self-reliance and indigenous development aspect, but also work together with other countries on future technologies, especially looking at the threat from China. That is a common threat that all the sides have. And I do think that both sides have actually done a good job of trying to understand each other's concerns and work together on how Make in India can actually be embraced by, American companies, for example, like Lockheed Martin or Boeing as well.
And the need that the West sees in the US in particular, how should I put it, diversifying away from legacy Russian equipment would obviously mean that you provide something.
Right.
That understanding would be there, but you see there's a mesh in how the US wants India to move away from Russia, and India is doing that as well. And the conditionalities or the priorities that India have, do they kind of mesh?
I think, that is going to be obviously a little bit of a difficult transition, a difficult conversation in the next few years. I mean, it also has historically been for the US-Indian relationship, right? I don't think that the US was ever really comfortable with the last dependence that India had on the Soviet Union or Russia. But, India itself realized after the fall of the Soviet Union that, again, it couldn't really be dependent on one country for its spare parts, and that kind of diversification away to different partners started in the 90s and has gone on through 2000s up until now. So I think my sense is that both sides are going to continue to talk about it. The US obviously realizes that India does need to reduce its dependence on Russia because of sort of national security considerations, which we can get into later. But I think the point that I've heard made is reached circles in the US, and a point that I've made as well is that if the outcome that the US actually cares about in the end is for India to develop its own capabilities to be able to actually compete with China effectively, there is no need for that capability to only come from the US. If the two sides are not able to figure out that procedure for whatever reason, there are other partners that India is working with, like France, like Israel, that can perhaps deliver that more and more effectively. And I think that there is some appreciation of that moving forward.